Lateral motions in the vast majority of swimming strokes are not sculling motions, and swimmers shouldn't actively try to scull in order to create speed. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. And this is a quick fire controversy video where I'm going to riff on a specific skill, a specific idea in swimming that's somewhat controversial, and give you my take on it. Today we're talking lateral motions. So are they sculling actions or are they something else? I believe they're something else, and let me explain to you why. So when swimmers are swimming, they have to find ways to create propulsion to move water backwards within the limitations of the shoulder, within the limitations of the range of motion, within the limitations of the strength. And in order to do that, they're going to have to use specific strategies. So one of the things they need to do in order to move water backwards is to set up the stroke, to set up the catch so that the arm is positioned backwards. In order to do that, swimmers are entering the hand straight up in front. In order to get the arm pointed down, the elbow is going to point out to the side, and that's going to necessarily pull the hand out to the side. The elbow is going to move out to the side, and the hand is going to move out to the side. It's not a scull out, but in order to position the arm in a way that's going to create a lot of surface area to move water backwards, the elbow necessarily has to move out, and the hand has to move out. Now think about this as well. In freestyle and butterfly, the hands enter shoulder width, so there's not that much motion that's required in order to get the elbows out. But in breaststroke, the hands enter straight forward, and then they have to slide out so that they can get into that position so that swimmers can create propulsion by moving the arm backwards. But if you watch here, now the hands do need to move out, but they're not sculling out. They're simply repositioning so that they're in a position in front of the shoulders, just like butterfly and freestyle, and then from that position they can get into a position to create propulsion and get the arm facing backwards. So that scull in breaststroke is not a scull, it's just a repositioning, just like in freestyle and butterfly, so that the hands can move backwards. So a lot of these lateral motions in setting up the stroke are more a function of the limitations of the range of motion of the shoulder and what's required to get the arms positioned backwards so swimmers can use the arms to create propulsion. So if we want to get that forearm facing backwards, there's going to have to be an outward motion. Again, it's not sculling to move water. That's what's required due to the anatomy of the shoulder in order to get the arm facing backwards. Now, when it comes to the pull, swimmers have to move water backwards. They need to move the arm backwards so that they move forwards. So why are there lateral motions? Let's take a look at the pulling action in freestyle. So we've got the arm set up so that the forearm is facing backwards. So from this position, swimmers are going to pull, and that pull is powered by the muscles of the chest and the back, the pecs and the lats. And when those muscles contract, they pull the elbow into the body. And that's what creates the power, the force to move the swimmer forward. And so to move the arm back, the elbow has to move into the body. And guess what? That hand just necessarily comes into the body. It's not a scull in, it's just a pull. And because the elbow has to move into the body for the strongest muscles to contract, the hand is going to go along for the ride. So it's the same thing in butterfly. They're set up here where the elbows are out and the hands are down so that they can hold lots of water. You pull in, pull the elbows in, and the hands are necessarily going to come in. That's very different than sculling in. This is a backwards pull, but the backwards pull is powered by muscles that are pulling the elbow into the body. So swimmers are going to necessarily move the hands in if they're trying to pull back. It's just the structure of the joint. It's not an active attempt to slide the hands in. It's just the nature of the joint and the nature of the muscles that move the joint. Setting up the stroke and pulling straight back are responsible for the majority of the lateral motions, and those lateral motions are a consequence of the limitations of the shoulder joint. Now, are there other lateral motions that may be relevant? Slight variations that can help swimmers get a little bit more propulsion out of each stroke? Yes, probably so. However, it's very difficult to actually teach these skills because it's very difficult to actually know what they are. They're probably really subtle, they're probably really nuanced, and they're probably not something that you can actively coach, because if you can't necessarily see it, how are you going to describe it to a swimmer? You give them the opportunity to figure it out. So if you're using lots of different hand postures like closed fists or OK signs or horns, it can be really useful for improving their ability to feel the water, to feel pressure on the water, and that can give them that extra little bit of propulsion that they would otherwise get just by pulling back and with the hand moving in because of the backward motion. You can also have them use different stroke counts and speeds, so they're helping them figure out what works really well. And when you combine those, the smart hands, the different hand postures, and the performance, you're much more likely to get those really nuanced, subtle lateral motions that do add up, do make a difference, but aren't responsible for the majority of the power and the propulsion in the pull. So how about sculling itself? Is that ever useful? Again, I think it can be because it helps swimmers learn how to manipulate the water, how to feel pressure, and how to manipulate pressure in order to create propulsion. But again, it's the backwards motion that's really important, and that backwards motion creates lateral motions, just as the setting up the stroke to initiate that backward motion also creates different lateral motions. They're secondary consequences of the big objective, which is to position the arm so it can move water backwards and then actually moving the water backwards. So that's why the majority of lateral motions are present in swimming. And again, there may be some other subtle aspects of it, and you can try to improve those aspects with using different hand postures, asking swimmers to perform or different stroke counts or speeds, and then doing a little bit of sculling to help them learn how to manipulate the water and get more attuned to the pressure that they create as they move through the water. If you want to learn more about what it takes to create more propulsion with the upper body, check out the video here.